Hey, Amy Posner here, and I want to talk to you today about subcontracting. I've had a bunch of questions about that recently, and it's something that I've been doing in my own business on projects for a few years, so I thought I would share some insights about what I've learned. Okay, so subcontracting 101. I have found when copywriters get to a point of somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 a month, they start looking for how to diversify their business or how to deal with taking on more work. Because usually when you get to about that point, you're kind of getting known, you're starting to get referrals, you're starting to get inquiries, and you really don't want to turn anything down, especially, when these dream clients come knocking at your door. And so one of the things that you can do is you can subcontract. You can hire other people to help you with various parts of a project. So there are a couple of things that are really great about subcontracting out when you find the right person, or if you have the right person. You can take on more projects. You can also focus on the things that you really like inside of projects, and you can delegate out some of the stuff that you like less. You hire somebody who loves that kind of thing. Emails are not my favorite thing. I know copywriters who that's the only thing they love to write. Perfect match for that kind of a scenario. So what does it look like? Who do you hire, and how do you hire them? So I found two methods that work well for me. But before I talk about any of them, I want to talk about what matters to you, because there's an absolute need for fit here. And you need to know sort of what your limits are and what you're good at and what you're not good at. For example, I really prize reliability and open and frequent communication more than I do a lot of other traits. It's really nice if I like somebody. Well, I probably wouldn't choose to work with them if I didn't like them, but I don't need to love them. I don't need to enjoy them personally or want to be best friends, but I want somebody whose work ethic I respect and who I like, and who values are really important to me. So yeah, at least we hold some of the same values, or they're not opposed to my views and my values. Let's at least put it that way, because I don't need everyone to think like I do. I just need them not to be offended by what I do think and believe, because I pay somebody for that. Because here's the thing, and this is true when somebody hires you as a copywriter. It's equally true when you're hiring someone. When you make that deal with the client, all the responsibility is on you. I can hire contractors all day long, but if they don't show up and get the job done, guess who it's up to? I made the commitment to get that client deliverable there by a certain date, and my name and my reputation's on the line. So you want to be really careful that you've got somebody that do what they say they're going to do, and that will show up and deliver. The other thing that really matters to me is communication. I don't like meetings. I don't like to have these long conversations, but I do like to know what's going on, and I prefer to find it out without going after someone. So I like if somebody is easy to reach and keeps me in the loop pretty well. The other thing, I don't love project management anymore, so I am willing to pay for that. If somebody is also a good project manager, I am willing to pay them more than I would pay for just copy if they'll manage the project as well. So let's talk about now, what does paying them mean? What does that look like? So I have found two scenarios that work really well for me. Let me caveat this a little bit by saying, because I have a mastermind, because I have individual coaching clients, because I coach in the Copy Hackers 10X freelance copywriter, I see a lot of copy. So I have access to a lot of copywriters, and I do have the privilege of knowing whether they're good or not, right? So, it's funny because sometimes there's brand new people who are brilliant. Like, you can tell they're not really experienced, but they're really good at copy. And then there's some seasoned people who, they just aren't quite as good, or they don't write in the style that enough like in my style that it's going to be compatible. Because remember, if they're creating half the deliverables and you're creating the other half, how does that come out? So there's, and I'm not going to talk here about how you manage inside the project of subcontracting. I might make that a separate video, like how do you coordinate? Who does write what? Do you both work on a piece? Do you each work on pieces? That I've experimented inside of that too. In fact, if you have questions about that, pop them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer. But in the meantime, the two things that I've done that have been effective, so I already know that they've got decent copy chops, and I don't need someone to be like the best copywriter in the world. I just need them to be good, and I need to know that they're good. And then I will either ask someone to scope me. So I'll come to you and I'll say, hey, here's the project. Here's the project brief. Here's what it looks like. I would like you to work on these pieces. Can you give me a quote? And so and they already know that, I'm going to be working on the project too. I'd like you to work on it with me. Here's what I want to work on, and here's what I would like you to work on. And so can you quote me on that? And so what I'm doing right there, and I have sometimes asked someone to quote me on almost the whole entire project. Sometimes it's half, sometimes it's a piece. So what I'm doing there is I am hoping to give them the fee that they want, so that they'll come back to me, and this is, a fee that would be nice for them. And I decide, if I can pay it. And sometimes I haven't even scoped. I'll get their quote and I'll base my scope on their quote and then my own quote for my part of the work. So that's one way to do it, is to literally have someone scope me like it's a project. Then they have nothing to do with the proposal. They may or may not be meeting with the client. I usually introduce subcontractors to the client. I run the project still, like I'm the one that speaks to them and coordinates with them, but I have no problem if this contractor, is in touch with them. I like always let my client know that there's somebody else working on the project. And then depending on the relationship, I will, have them communicate directly at times. So that's the one scenario. The other scenario is literally splitting a project with someone. So I'll have already scoped it, or I'll have already given the client a price. And so say, for example, it's a $15,000 project. I will go to, one of my go-to reliable people and say, hey, listen, here's the scope. Here's the fee. I'd like to split this project with you. Are you game? I will sometimes, though, trade that project management piece that I was talking about for the fact that I brought in the client and I'm going to do all the client liaison, and that's kind of an exchange, because when you bring the project to the table, there's a whole lot of value in that, right? You've already landed the client, you've already made the arrangements, you're probably going to be the one that's doing the most of the talking with them and communicating. There's a lot of value in that. And so in exchange, I have asked people, okay, I'll split this with you, but I'd like you to be the project manager and I'll be the client coordinator. And of course, and I'm very upfront about it, and I brought it to the table, so there's a little imbalance there, and that's how I'd like to address it. Does that work for you? I'm very direct about it. I've never had anyone say no. And one of my partners is freaking brilliant at this. She is so good. And it just like makes me happy the whole time, because she's doing that and I'm not. So those are the two ways that I've done it. What I like about the second way is I love the transparency. Now they can be in on the proposal. I mean, they could be in the other case, but I don't know. I feel uncomfortable with that. Like having people know exactly what the scope is when they've scoped me, because I feel like they're two separate arrangements, and I don't know. That feels like it could get messy to me. So I will tell somebody exactly what's going on in this, we're splitting the project scenario, and then they can help me on the proposal. It just feels like they're more complete into the project, and I kind of like that feeling. The other scenario is really good for me, especially for somebody I haven't worked with before. You just don't know really until you work with somebody what they're going to be like. I have been surprised by people who I've seen, from an outside perspective. And then when I'm actually working with them, it's a very, very different experience. And so I don't like to make any decisions until I've worked with someone on a project. And I usually would work on a project where they would scope me, because then I feel more in control. It's like I'm using their services as a sort of a separate thing, and it's an adjunct to the project. I still let the client know that there's somebody on the project. And I'll just share a little thing with you. It took me a long time. I was going to say years. I don't think it took that long. It took me a while to figure out, how do I position this with the client? And basically I've positioned it that, I use other people. I have team members, and, really what you're getting two brains for the price of one. And then I talked about the advantage of that, because copy really does well with a couple of sets of eyes, or multiple sets of eyes on it. I mean, and you know how that is. If you're a copywriter, you can't see your copy after a while. You just can't. You lose perspective. And then having those other eyeballs, I think, is so helpful, and it really improves the copy. So those are my two scenarios for subcontracting. I use them to this day. I am currently working on 2 client projects. I have a different subcontractor on each one. And I don't have a big field of people I work with, really, just a couple. Because I'm picky about, sort of how the communication works and how they work. I mean, I'm not a pain in the ass. I hope I'm not. I think I'm not. But it is important to me that I feel comfortable with that person, and the project unfolds the way that I need or want it to. And that's how I find out. And then I can consider moving them into the secondary kind of contracting project. So think about what matters to you. What personality traits are going to matter and what's going to drive you mad. Sometimes that's a better direction to go, to figure out, you figure out what you want by what you don't want. But I hope that helps. If you have any questions about subcontracting, pop them below in the comments. I am happy to answer. And likewise, if you would like to be notified when these episodes drop, click the bell and you will be notified. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.